Kaieteur Radio, keeping you informed.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Burbies 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Good day, welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. In your details today, the USA environmental legislation requires the taxing of crude, the revenues of which are then placed into an oil spill liability trust fund. But America is not the only nation that does this. China also has a similar arrangement in place with the China Oil Pollution Compensation Fund. This fund is maintained by contributions from oil cargo owners in China, pursuant to the 2010 regulation of the People's Republic of China on prevention and control of marine pollution from ships. Notably, there is a process before money can be accessed from that fund. In fact, all claims against the fund must first pass through China's local courts against the responsible ship or the insurer or guarantor. While the USA and China have their oil spill trust fund to cater for an oil disaster, Guyana, on the other hand, continues to allow American oil giant ExxonMobil Guyana and its partners, China National Offshore Oil Corporation and Hess Corporation, to operate offshore with only limited liability insurance in the event of an inevitable oil spill. And in other news, leader of the PNCR, Aubrey Norton, has rejected the use of the word renegotiation attributed to him in the headline of an article which said he backed calls for renegotiating the oil agreement made between Guyana and the foreign oil companies. Kaieteur News had carried the article headline, Norton backs calls for renegotiation of oil contract, in its Friday edition. Norton stated, however, that he did not use the word renegotiation when questioned about his position on renegotiating the 2016 production sharing agreement. In a letter to the editor, Norton stated, and I quote, "What I did say was that the law provides for action to be taken to ensure that the people of Guyana benefit from our resources and that the contract provides for changes to be made in keeping with Article 31(2) of the agreement, and that the PNCR will do everything within the confines of the law to ensure our people get increased benefits from the oil and gas sector." And moving on. According to former executive member of the Transparency Institute Guyana Inc., Mr. Alfred Boulay, the farmer must know how much of which crops he reaps and the shopkeeper how much of which items he sells. Now, Boulay explained that Guyanese are paying for the Liza Destiny and Liza Unity FPSO vessels operating in the starboard block. He noted, however, that citizens are completely unaware of what value they are getting for their dollars, as information pertaining to the levels of production, among others, is not readily available for public scrutiny. Presently, the public is free to view the revenue accumulated from oil production, though the Ministry of Finance's website, however, there are no reports on how much of the resource is being removed from below the sea floors, as well as other technical data. And moving on, the president of the General Workers Union, Norris Witter, called on the government to offer real solutions to the problems citizens are facing, as opposed to the presentation of fasting and praying activities as a substitute. GWU, during their third week of protest action outside Parliament building yesterday, said that prayer alone cannot help a nation when its people are hungry. The union has thus reiterated, among other things, demands for the government to approve the 2019 minimum wage agreement as a show of genuine concern for citizens. That agreement would see workers' lowest pay moving from $44,200 to $60,000. Witter said that the government has the perfect opportunity to demonstrate in a tangible way how righteous they are. Since protest action commenced weeks ago, Witter said there has been no indication by the government that they are concerned about easing, in particular, cost of living woes. And moving on, Anthony Prasad, who confessed to stabbing a man 6 times, was on Friday handed a 6 years jail sentence. On March 16th, after spending 6 years on remand for attempted murder, Prasad pleaded guilty to the charge, which stated that on March 22nd, 2016, in the county of Demerara, he wounded Navindra Budu with intent to murder him. State Prosecutor Simraj Gadraj told the court that both parties are not known to each other, and on the day in question, around 18 hours, Budu was walking along the UG Access Road when he was attacked from behind Prasad. It was stated that Prasad, who was armed with a pair of scissors, pushed his hands into Budu's pockets, inquiring what he had. The victim, however, resisted and Prasad punched him in the face, causing 2 of his teeth to break. Prasad then stabbed Budu 6 times above the body with the scissors, leaving him bleeding profusely on the side of the road. And now let's tell you, a teenager of Swan Village, located along the Linden-Soesdijk Highway, is wanted by police for the death of his stepfather. The wanted teen was identified as 19-year-old Joshua Williams, and the man he is accused of killing is 41-year-old Joseph Davis. According to sources close to the investigation, Davis was stabbed during the late evening hours on Friday, March 18th. He was rushed to the Georgetown Public Hospital, where he was admitted. 9 days later, on March 27th, Davis died at the hospital while receiving treatment for his stab wounds. Last Friday, police issued a wanted bulletin for Williams. Investigators believe that Williams was the one who had stabbed Davis on Pago Day. If anyone has seen or possess information about Williams' whereabouts, they are asked to make contact with police on telephone numbers 216-0251, 225-8196, or the nearest police station. In other news, with Guyana expecting a 47% growth rate in its gross domestic product this year, 3 minor political parties believe that adherence to the laws, as well as the tenets of transparency, inclusion, and accountability, are key aspects of good governance, which ought to accompany the said growth. Representing the Liberty and Justice Party was Deputy Speaker Lennox Schumann, while a New and United Guyana was represented by its chairperson, Timothy Jonas, and the Federal United Party by Mr. Chandra Sohan. Schumann opined to the panel that there are several pillars of good governance, which includes adherence to the rule of law, how government interact with the Constitution and other subordinate laws, as well as how they interact with the public and implement policies. Meanwhile, Jonas pointed out that while Guyana remains in the early stage of development, many dangers lie ahead. Notably, however, the lawyer said that the first limb of good governance is transparency. And moving on, the photographer, who is accused of being disguised under the cartoon character Mudwater and cyberbullying citizens, was on Friday placed on $100,000 bail for the alleged cyberbullying of a journalist. 35-year-old Kieran Bruce of Soesdijk Linden Highway appeared in the Diamond Grove Magistrates Court before Magistrate Sunil Scares. Bruce was charged for using a computer system to subject another person to public ridicule, contempt, hatred, or embarrassment. The alleged victim being Leroy Smith of Big Smith News Update. And that brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.
And now for the page 7 of today's Kaieteur News, dedicated to being blunt. Guyana's oil wealth has made it a financial hub for one of the world's biggest oil producers, ExxonMobil. Citizens' voices are being raised for a better oil contract, and despite leaders claiming to want the same, none have displayed strength by boldly declaring the need to change, adjust, modify, or renegotiate this agreement. Renegotiating the oil contract has now become taboo. It is never beneficial for a people or a country when its leaders are afraid to take firm stances. It is worst when these very people, elected to protect and represent its citizens, display weaknesses when strength is their most valued ticket. Those seeking to reap the most from Guyana's oil wealth are emboldened. They see the lack of drive, the lack of unity, and the lack of strength. Brothers and sisters, we must stand up and resist this before it is too late.
Nothing in life is free, but the My Digicel app is. You don't need to be on a data plan to use the app. You can conveniently chat with Ruby or an agent for help. Check your account